Yerifak, asu anno sechi.
Ana halisi. Ana asok yeresekoshi.
What those characters are speaking isn't gibberish. It's actually a language called Dothraki, and it was invented by this guy, David Peterson, in lovely Orange County, California. David Peterson is what we call a conlanger, an inventor of languages.
Conlanging is the intentional creation of a full language, creating its full grammar, its full phonology, its writing system if it has one, and its entire lexicon.
David has written many languages, but the first one he wrote was back in 2000.
I was taking an intro linguistics class at UC Berkeley in 2000, and it was just one day during class I started scribbling on my notes my very first language.
He named it after his girlfriend,
Meg Davy.
And according to David himself,
it's irredeemably awful. It's not worth even considering anymore. Everything that I was doing with this language was just a kind of really fancy, bizarre way to speak English. So I kind of just started over and said, all right, ground zero, how do I be a language creator?
Before we move forward, let's take a quick step back and talk about the godfather of modern conlanging, J.R.R. Tolkien. You probably know this name because he's the author of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. He created 14 different languages for use within Middle-earth.
Quenya and Sindarin are probably his most famous. He was the very first person that we know of to create languages just for fun, and we've been kind of emulating him ever since.
Now that we've cleared that up, we can move forward. We're here in California because we're curious about what it takes to create a successful language. David's having two of his friends who are also conlangers come over and speak with us. One of them brought ice cream. We were gonna do this outside, but it's too hot, so we're gonna do it inside. The three of them are talking about how languages are created, and they've come up with 5 steps. Take it away, guys.
Oh, so, all right.
A naturalistic conlang needs 5 basic things.
1. The people.
What they do, who their neighbors are.
The second thing that you're going to need is a phonology or sound system.
Do you have voiced and voiceless consonants? Do you have aspirated consonants?
3. Words.
All the nouns, all the verbs, all the modifiers.
4th, grammar.
Which is the fun part.
Finally, history.
You need to know how the meanings of words changed over time, and you need to know how the grammar of your language evolved from a time in the distant past to what's used now.
Now that we've got that settled, let's finish this.
In the past 15 years, somebody who created language went from somebody who was like, oh, you're a nerd, to, oh, wow, that's really nerdy, which now means cool.
And its prolific use in television and film proves that it's not just a passing fancy.
For television, the difference between a created language and some other set prop is that the maximum level of interaction that a viewer ever has with a background set or with a prop is just seeing it on screen. A language, on the other hand, when you hear it, that's the most real a language ever gets. For that reason, you have to have a fully created language for a television show and not just a bunch of gibberish. Was that good?
That was great.
Thank God.
Sword making has always been an esoteric endeavor. There's never been a great number of people doing it. You have this transformation of raw material, the alteration of nature, and in the end, you get something that just exudes power.
This is Valyrian Steel. It was my father's sword.
The ancient swords on Game of Thrones, forged with Valyrian steel, were stronger and lighter than any other weapon. No one knows how they were made. In the real world, over 1,000 years ago in Viking lands, there was also a series of special swords with mysterious origins. And a blacksmith in Wisconsin tried to make one.
This is an Ulfbert sword. from about 850 to maybe early 1200s. In Viking-controlled lands, you had a sword that had a name inlay called Wolfbert, which roughly translates to wolf tooth or wolf bear. It's a word of power.
There are only 350 known Ulfbert swords, forged with the quality of steel that didn't emerge in Europe for another 1,000 years. No one knows exactly how they were made.
I think I've come fairly close, or at least a pretty good rendition of how they made those blades. Steel is a pretty special material. We know a great deal about it, and we know almost nothing about it. So with the Ulfbert, you have a mythical steel mirrored in the Game of Thrones, where you have this steel that no one's able to reproduce, that black Valyrian steel. Sword-making technology still holds a bit of alchemy, a bit of mysticism in it. We want to believe that there's something that we can't understand. There's still mysteries in steel.
Except for the horses. Nearly any animal that has been seen on Game of Thrones comes from our farm. The sheep, the goats, the pigs. I was going through difficult times, but Game of Thrones led to a whole different world for me. Here I was, a wee farmer from County Armagh. It just blew me away at the start. Kenny Gracie, Fort Hill Farm in Northern Ireland. On the farm we have the old traditional breeds, animals that are native to the British Isles, namely the longhorn cattle, Jacob sheep and saddleback pigs. I was going through difficult times, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I was struggling. I was approached by Game of Thrones, and they asked could I supply rare and traditional animals for their production, and I said, yeah, of course. And so this was a godsend to me. Joey, I know, darling. Come on. Good boy. Game of Thrones afforded me the luxury, so to speak, of doing what I love, and that is working with animals. Being the animal handler and taking my animals out on set, a lot of the people recognise the affection that I have for them and the love. As far back as I can remember, I've always loved animals, and they've always been the love of my life. That affection that you show to an animal, I think they show it back tenfold.
In the forests of Southeast Asia, high up in the treetops, a mythical creature lives. It turns out, dragons are real. So I have to call a biologist.
I'm Anthony Russell from the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada.
We're talking about a species of flying lizards.
So it's called Dracovolans, which means flying dragon.
Okay, these flying dragons, they are a little different from the dragons we see in movies. For starters, they're small.
They are.
Only about 8 inches long. And they don't breathe fire. But they do fly. In a way. They're gliders, which means they have control of their descent and trajectory, but they don't have any power in it.
For every 1 foot they go down in vertical distance, they'll be able to travel 6 feet along.
And that's because they don't actually have wings.
They're actually modifications of the ribs, so they're nothing to do with the legs and arms.
Evolutionarily speaking, this has helped the lizards survive. They can escape attacks, and they have a broader living zone. So they might not be dragons.
Sometimes people name things because it's more dramatic effect.
Well, they're still incredible lizards.
Why I like to save the goats? That's a question I have often been asking myself because I can't answer it. This is somehow my mission to take care of the goats. Somebody had to do it and I fell in love with them. My name is Jóhanna Bergmann Þorvaldsdóttir and I'm a goat farmer in Iceland. For the last 16 years I have been trying to build up and protect our goat breed. They have been isolated in Iceland for 1100 years. They came by the Vikings from Norway and from Scotland and Ireland. The Icelandic goat has twice been less than 100 animals. In 1962 there was just about 60-70 goats left. They have been in a very big danger of both inbreeding and disappearing. I got them here and since then it has been my passion to breed up this type of the goats. This is the only farm we are trying to live from the goats, to milk them and make products. If you are trying to save a breed, you have to use what they give. We have been doing a lot of different things to raise attention for the goats. When Game of Thrones was shooting here, 20 of the goats were used. They would not be here anymore if I wouldn't have taken care of them. I'm very proud to look at my flocks and see that they are alive because of my work. It's just like when you have children, you are proud of them. I'm very proud of my goats.